Hello everyone, thank you for joining us on this Wednesday morning and welcome to this Specialist Trading educational presentation. Now today I'd like to talk to you about how to trade pullbacks in extreme trends. I'm sure you've seen we've had some strong, nice trends to the upside as of late. In fact, it seems as if everything only goes up these days. But every once in a while you'll see these strong uptrends as well as strong downtrends as we saw in March and April. Now, when you're trading pullbacks, what you're looking is for a little counter trend within those strong trends. So in other words, when you see an uptrend, you're looking for a little sell-off. When you see a downtrend, you're looking for a little bounce. The only problem is, in these extreme trends, it's very difficult to spot these pullbacks. Sometimes they'll only be a little one-day counter trend, and then they're right back resuming their course because the trend is so strong. So it's very difficult to see sometimes. For example, let's look at this chart here as we look at UPS. Now, this was just last month, a couple of weeks ago. Someone looking at this would say, well, maybe you really like this stock. Maybe it fits all your requirements to go long, but you feel as if there's some resistance right there. Maybe that's where the institutions are selling, or maybe that's some major resistance, some Fibonacci resistance. So you don't want to just jump in yet. You'd like a little bit more confrontation. So you're going to wait to see what it does. Maybe you're waiting for the earnings. And then all of a sudden one day it just gaps up and then you missed it, right? You missed the trades. You're thinking to yourself, gosh, I can't buy now because now it's, points higher. And for all intents and purposes, it's gone up so fast and so quickly, it may actually be overbought. Let's say you go to that chat room where they look at different indicators and things and they say to themselves, well, all the indicators are overbought. You can't buy this now. So you tell yourself, okay, there's a big gap right here. I'm going to wait for this to sell off. And when it does, then I'll buy it lower before it goes right back up. I'll wait for the pullback, okay? So you have a plan in place. You're going to wait, right? And then this happens. What happened to the little pullback? What happened to the sell-off? Well, with what I'm going to be sharing with you today, the pullback was this one-day sell-off right there because the trend was so extreme. But you would have been able to identify it with what I'm going to be sharing with you in today's presentation and potentially been able to capture 19 points in just 1 week. Now, this works just as well to the downside. So if the market ever decides to go back down again, you can still take full advantage of this. For example, as we look at this older chart in CME going back to June, we see that the market pretty much fell out of bed, but then it kind of stabilized. And maybe your analysis, maybe that chat room you go to says that this is making a major bottom. So you're thinking about buying this because for all intents and purposes, there's another gap right here. So you think it's going to go back to that gap. That'll be a nice little trade. Maybe you want to buy the calls, maybe some type of spread strategy, or maybe outright buy the stock. But either way, you're very bullish on this, okay? Well, I'm going to share with you the technique, the exact same technique, which actually, while you were being very bullish, would have generated not only a sell signal right here on this little 2-day bounce, but another one right here before CME fell 15 points, okay? So what happened to the bottom? Now, I know a lot of you may be saying, such as I get emails, well, Steve, this is great, but I can see you're a technician. You have been studying charts for a while, and I don't really trade that style. I like to look at earnings. I like to look at reports and economic news. And sure, every once in a while, I'll look at that stuff, but it's just a little bit too complicated for me. I don't think that way, and I've never really been able to make any sense of that. Well, that's okay, because with Pro Trader Strategies, I developed the PTS Primo charting platform. This makes it simple, and it actually teaches you how to spot these pullback setups in extreme trends. So you're going to see just how simple it is with our platform to apply this technique. So welcome once again. My name is Steven Primo. I am the president and founder of Specialist Trading. About 12 years ago, I teamed up with Pro Trader Strategies with just one goal in mind, and that was simply to educate traders around the world. Our goal wasn't to give you nightly signals on a nightly basis so you could just blindly take them. Our goal wasn't to tell you what the best market is to trade. All right, you should be trading Bitcoin, you should be trading this one stock, or you should be trading this one time frame. That wasn't our goal either. And our goal wasn't simply to take you out of the game and let us do all the hard work for you. Our goal was actually the opposite, to supply all of our members around the world in over 115 countries and in every state in the United States with sound fundamental education, things and techniques and strategies that have stood the test of time so that ultimately you could be in charge of your own trading destiny. You see, we feel that that's one of the reasons why most traders, perhaps yourself included, fail or have a very difficult time is because you're taking yourself out of the game. You're letting someone else decide for you what to buy or what to sell. All right, you watch somebody on TV, you wait for the earnings to come out to tell you if it's going to be a good earnings report or not. You wait for the economic news, but it's all the same thing. You're not making the decision. You're letting something else tell you when it's okay to buy or when it's okay to sell. You see, once you learn these simple techniques that I was taught some 4 decades ago, well, you're in charge, and for the very first time, you're in control of your own trading destiny. So this is what we want to instill in all of our students, and hopefully we will be able to do that and show you a little bit of our sincerity and how much we want to educate you in today's presentation. Now, before we begin, we are required first to share this with you once again, so please take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results. In fact, I think I have about 170, 200 slides today of examples to share with you, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the performance results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. And also remember, since we are an educational company first and foremost, that all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. Now, as we do each and every week, if you haven't done so already, I see a lot of new faces today. Please feel free to follow us on Twitter. There's our handle right there. I would suggest copying down. It's abbreviation for Specialist Trading. There's a lot of great free educational information. I post on a daily basis, anywhere from signals our strategies have generated to little bits of financial wisdom, to little scenarios and snapshots of our techniques applied to stocks, futures, currency pairs, even Bitcoin, commodities, just to give you an insight into how we teach and how we try to educate you. So lots of great free education, so please feel free to follow us on Twitter. Okay, so as I stated in the opening statements, we are first and foremost an educational company. This separates us from the other webinars or the other websites you may have visited, because we're not interested in telling you how to trade or what to trade. We just want to teach you things that have worked and then work with you so that you can decide how you want to apply them. You see, when I was struggling some 43 years ago on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange, I was actually making markets in stocks and having a very difficult time. I was doing all of the same things that I'm sure you were taught, wait with bated breath for the earnings or economic news to come out, the jobless claims. Remember, this was in the 70s, all right? We didn't have, blogs or the internet then, but we had newsletters. I subscribed to all of them. I was abreast of all the perfect indicators, the new indicators that came out. In fact, if you looked at my screen, you'd see a good 10 or 20 indicators on my screen. And I watched on TV all of the so-called trading gurus, what they thought the market was going to do and what they liked and what they didn't like, okay? And guess what? After using all these things, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with right now because they're still around, nothing seemed to work in terms of consistency. I would have a few good trades and then I'd give it all back. Then another few trades, give it all back, all right? So my mentors saw how much I was struggling. And these were specialists themselves who were making markets on the floor of the exchange. And they taught me all of the same things that I teach my students around the world. So as you can see here, my goal is not to force feed you signals, not to tell you what to buy or what to sell, not to give you signals on a nightly basis, not to tell you what the perfect time frame is. My goal is simply to teach you how to trade with the specialist edge, the same edge that turned my trading around some 4 decades ago, and hopefully it will be able to do the same for you. Okay, so this is an educational class, so ask me as many questions as you like. We have a good crowd here today, but I don't want to stop at each slide. Once again, I said I have about 170, close to 200 slides today. If we stop at each one, we'll be here probably till about 5 in the evening Pacific time. I don't want to take all your whole day. So please, if you have a question, wait till the end to ask. Promise I'll get to it in about the next half hour or so. The only question we answer right now is the most common, and that is this being recorded? Yes, it is. So if you have to leave early or if you're having technical issues, don't worry. Each and every one of you will be sent a link to this recording, okay? So once again, we have a good class here today. We're a little bit different from other webinars you may have attended. If you have a question, please feel free to ask at the end, though. I know a lot of you I see are already asking questions, but please wait till the end and I get to them, okay? All right, let's begin today's educational presentation. Now, we're going to be talking about something I covered last week. I'm going to be sharing with you an entirely different technique on our new PTS XT Extreme Trend Indicator. The reason why we're covering it again is because not only is this feature brand new, but at the same time, this is our most popular tool at the moment at Specialist Trading. We have students that are just raving about it. It helps them so much, and it makes trading really simple. And It really pinpoints these extreme trends in any market, in any time frame. Doesn't matter if you're trading forex, doesn't matter if you're trading a 10-minute chart of the E-minis, doesn't matter if you're trading weekly bars of stocks. It absolutely makes no difference. You can apply this to any market in any time frame. But for those of you who still are not familiar with what the PTS XT Extreme Trend Indicator really is, let me give you a brief description. Okay, the PTS XT tool auto-identifies extreme trends in advance. I mean, think of that. How would you like to know with a high probability, because it's not guaranteed 100%, I don't want you to think that, well, Steve said this is guaranteed that it will tell me in advance when an extreme trend is about to begin. No, nothing does that. So don't think that right off the bat, but it has an uncanny ability, many times, as you'll see in a few minutes, how just off looking at a few bars, how it can identify that an extreme uptrend or downtrend is just about to begin. Now, it's a proprietary tool that's based on multiple proprietary indicators and their relationship to one another. So when everything lines up, you have a very high probability that you'll get a very strong trend, either in one direction or the other. So obviously, it identifies these extreme zones in advance, but it also pinpoints these low-hanging fruit trade areas. So just imagine, if you knew that an extreme trend was taking place just about now, you can add any strategy, any technique. It doesn't have to be one of mine, it can be one of yours, and you will really have a low-hanging fruit trade right there. On top of that, these zones can keep you out of choppy or whipsaw markets. A lot of our students will only trade in an extreme up or downtrend. When the indicator is not flashing this, then they stay out of the market, because obviously that's most likely when you're going to be whipsawed. So once you do that, well, you're increasing your odds for consistency tremendously. You're only trading in the strong trends and you're out of the market entirely in the whipsaw trends. Now, this provides you with multiple trade opportunities, which I'll be sharing with you in just a few seconds. We'll be talking about a trade opportunity using a new tool we have. Now, one of the great advantages is that if you like to trade sectors, it will tell you which sector to be in and which sector to avoid. We have a lot of swing traders or even investors who like to trade maybe only the tech stocks or maybe the real estate sector or another sector. Well, if you can apply this to an ETF that covers that sector, it will tell you if that ETF is in an extreme uptrend or downtrend, and you can decide whether you want to be in that sector or not. But today, what we're going to be talking about is how to identify high probability pullback setups. Because many times students have said, gosh, Steve, I love this, but you know what? I missed a couple of initial signals, and even though it's still in the extreme trend, how can I get back in? What's a good way to get in once it's already in a high probability uptrend or downtrend? Well, I'm going to be sharing that with you today using this pullback technique. You can see how simple it is to apply. Once again, any market, any time frame. So if we have some currency pair traders here, trust me, you can apply it. We have tons of currency pair traders who are already using it. If you're an E-mini trader that trades tick charts, you can apply it to E-mini trades. If you're a Bitcoin trader, you can apply it to Bitcoin, all right? All right, so let's talk about how we're going to find these pullbacks. Well, we're introducing our new feature, which is called the PTS XT Tracker. This is a great tool I've only talked about once before, but I'm going to share with you an entirely different way to apply it as we've done in the past. Okay, let's look at this chart here in ESPO. Okay? Once again, we're only looking at 4 bars here. These are daily bars. Someone looking at this just off site and saying, well, Steve, how can you get any idea what this is going to do? Well, here's how sensitive our PTS XT indicator is. Because right there, once it color blocked that bar yellow, that's identifying that most likely an extreme uptrend is about to begin. I know most of you say, well, how can you do that? It looks like the stock is doing nothing. We're only looking back 4 days, but that's how sensitive these tools are. And even though it's not guaranteed, there's a high probability that this is going to have a nice, strong uptrend, even though it closed towards the low of the day, okay? And then as we look in the future, look what happened. So every day that you stay in that buy block, what we call our buy block, it will color around the qualified and required bars. It will color them a yellow. Okay, now you can change that color if you have our platform, whatever color you'd like, but that's the color it will be. Okay, so what we're going to do now is kind of change and edit the way we view that buy block. This is our new tracker tool. Okay, as you can see, it's the exact same chart. Let me toggle back. The exact same chart. Here's the chart with a buy block, and here's the chart with the tracker. Now the new tracker feature tracks the high of each bar that is generated in a buy block, okay? So this is the way it will appear once you apply this tracker feature. It looks entirely different from this buy block, okay? Now someone would say, well, why are we using this? What's the point of this? Why don't I just use the buy block? Well, you're going to see in just a few minutes how we can apply this to trading pullbacks. Now this works to the downside as well. 3 bars here of BIIB going back to June, all right? Once again, someone would say, how in the world can you tell just looking at 3 bars what this market's going to do? Well, the sensitivity of the PTS XT Extreme Trend tool actually generated a sell block. You see, just off the very first bar that it identifies a high probability downtrend, it will color that block reddish orange. Now, it's not guaranteed once again, but there's a high probability that you're going to have an extreme trend to the downside, okay? And as we see going forward, look what happened. Stock went down, kind of bounced a little bit, then fell out of bed, right? Now, let's apply the tracker, because what we're looking at right here is called the sell block. It's colored reddish orange. When we apply the tracker, this is what it looks like, all right? Once again, let me toggle back to the sell block, the exact same chart, but with the tracker. Now, the sell block is different, or I should say the tracker is different in that it tracks the low of each bar that is generated in a sell block. So in other words, when you get an extreme buy or uptrend, the tracker will be on the top. When you get an extreme downtrend, the tracker will be below. Okay, so you understand what that's going to look like. Now let's look at the pullback process. Now that you understand the feature and the new indicator we have, the way of looking at it, how are we going to use this to actually help us trade these extreme trend pullbacks? Well, let me show you how simple it is. All right, so we're looking for a pullback buy setup. This means that we're looking at an extreme uptrend and we're looking to buy at lower levels within that uptrend. Now maybe the lower level will only last 1 bar. That's the way it happens sometimes. Maybe sometimes it'll be 2 or 3 or 4 bars. But let's show you how simple it is using this new feature. All right, so on this generic chart, here's our first day. We just have a generic bar here. It doesn't matter, you know, if it closes up, it closes down, doesn't matter where it opens. It's just generic to show you the process. Now, once the tool has determined that you're in an extreme uptrend, it will place the tracker above the bar, okay? All right, so let's see what the next bar does. The next price bar went lower, but the tracker is still above, okay? So that's still telling us that even though price went lower, it doesn't mean that we're not in an extreme uptrend anymore, because the tracker is still there. It just means that we're, you know, pulling back a little bit. So this is what we want to look at. We want to look at this downward day in the tracker, okay? Here's the downward 1-day slot. All right, let's see what happened on the next plotting here. Well, we went down again. Now, does this mean we're in a downtrend now? No, because the tracker is still on top. And look what happened. We plotted 1 down move. Now we have the second. All right, so this is the way we use this for defining these pullbacks. Once you have a minimum of 2 down slots in the tracker, what you want to do is place a buy order, or else be, you know, very diligent when you're watching, and make sure that if you trade above that downward day where you're the second slot down, that's where you want to buy. But once it trades above there, it doesn't have to close above there, just has to trade above. This is what we call our confirmation entry, okay? So you want to enter if it trades above here. Now, if we went down and continued to go down 3, down 4 slots, down 5 slots, as long as there was a tracker above the bars, you could continue to track it down and place your order to buy lower and lower. But you start off with the second bar, not the first down slot bar, but with the second, okay? And then as you see, the next day we opened a little lower and then went higher. This is where you entered, and you took advantage of that nice up move, okay? You see how the process works? Very simple. But remember, you have to have the tracker on top of the bar while it is selling off. Now, let's say we have an extreme trend pullback, but to the downside, okay? This is a sell setup. We have our generic bar right here, and if we apply the indicator, now we see that the indicator, the tracker, is below. So this is telling us that we are in an extreme downward trend, okay? All right, so let's watch it. Let's see what the next bar does. The next bar rallies. Okay, so is the trend over? No, because the tracker is still below. So we're still in an extreme downtrend, and we've gone one slot up. So that's just one move up. We need to have a minimum of 2 moves up. Let's see what happened to the next bar. Well, the next bar went up and the tracker is still below. So we have 2 slots up. So that is our benchmark. That's what we can do. Now we can place an order to sell right below this bar where we had the second upward slope up here in the tracker, okay? Now, this doesn't mean that we have to wait for it to close below this bar. It just has to trade there. That's our area to enter. And the next day we opened a little higher and we entered, and that's how we take advantage of this. It's that simple. Doesn't matter what time frame, doesn't matter what market. You can do it in both upwards and downwards directions, okay? All right, so now that you understand the process, let me show you how simple it is to apply this process on the PTS Primo charting platform. This is the educational platform that identifies these tracker setups and makes it really simple to trade pullbacks in extreme either uptrends or downtrends. Okay, so let's look at that chart we originally looked at, UPS, right? Remember we thought we missed it and we said, well, look at this big gap right here, all right? I can't buy it now. It's overbought, right? I mean, who would want to buy it after it's just jumped up like crazy? So what I want to do is I want to wait for it to come down and fill that gap. Well, remember how I said in the beginning of the presentation how most traders fail because you're listening or making your decisions based off things that have no consistency? Why don't we just listen to what the market's telling us? Okay, because all these tools are based off what the market is telling us, not what's based off, well, there's a gap and that guy in the chat room says it should go down there to fill that gap, or the institutions have buy orders lower, so I want to buy with them, or maybe the earnings are going to come out and they're going to be bad, so I want to buy when they dip down. You see how all those decisions are made off of what something or someone else is going to say or do. What is the market telling you? Well, what we want to do is apply the tracker on our platform. In the PTS XT Extreme Trend tab, just click that on. You'll see the drop-down menu. These are all these different functions. Let's just click on our new feature here, the tracker. And once we click that on, we've seen that we've been in extreme uptrend this entire time. The entire time you were waiting, the market was screaming, I'm in an extreme uptrend. Even though I've gone sideways, you should jump on board. You don't have to wait for the earnings. You don't have to wait for a breakout. All right, but let's say you missed it. Now, during this extreme uptrend, here's the tracker above the price. We had one slot down, and then we moved back up again, then another slot down, but we never had 2 consecutive slots down until right here. This is where you thought it was overbought, but you had 1 and then 2. So that's the benchmark, that's the signal to say, I'm going to buy above this bar right here. Okay, I'll place an order to go long if we trade above it. Now, if we continue to go lower, 3, 4, and the tracker was still above, we could lower this entry point down lower and lower, as long as the tracker was above. Let's see what happened. The very next bar, guess what? It opened lower, went up. Remember, we don't need for it to close there. It just needs to trade above that bar's high. It could be 1 tick, 2 ticks, it's up to you. But we entered right here and caught that 19 points potentially in 1 week. See how simple that is? You didn't have to look at news. You didn't have to look at what the earnings are going to be. You didn't have to go in a chat room or a trading room. You made your own trading decisions based off what the market was telling you. All right, what about CME? Remember we thought the bottom was made there? That guy in that chat room says, hey, this is really good. You got to buy this. It's oversold and there's a good bottom formation right here, so we got to buy this. Well, once again, most traders fail because you listen to someone or something else who really doesn't have any higher levels of consistency than you do. So why would you give your money away to somebody who really, for all intents and purposes, isn't doing any better than you are? Just trade based off what the market is telling you. So if we apply the extreme trend, click on the tracker feature, the market is telling us that we originally were in an extreme uptrend. And what do we have? We have 1, 2, 3. So we would have placed an order to enter right here, but look what happened. We never went there. We never traded above this bar, and the tracker disappeared. So that's telling us we are no longer in an uptrend. So guess what? We never bought. We didn't lose any money. And on top of that, 2 bars later, now we are in extreme downtrend. So this isn't a bottom at all. And what do we have here? We have 1 slot up, 2 slots up, 3 slots up. So after the second, you would have placed an order to go short here, but it never traded below that bar. But since this next slot is going up again, well, now you just raise your entry to go short right here. Now remember, your entry to go short Doesn't mean that you actually have to short the stock. You can if you want, but you could just as easily have purchased a put. You could purchase some type of spread strategy with a downward bias. It makes no difference. Remember, we're not here to tell you how to trade, like you should only do stocks, you should only trade futures, you should only trade currency pairs, you should only trade options. It's up to you. We're just teaching you high probability setups. How you want to initiate the trade is entirely up to you. Remember, we want you to make those decisions, not us. So however you want to trade, you should be entering an order however you want right here to go short. Now the next bar, guess what? We opened a little higher, traded there, so you would have sold 15 points. You didn't have to listen to anything. You didn't have to wait for the earnings. You just trade relaxed, listening to the market. See, trading is really simple. It's the trader who makes it more complicated than it has to be. By piling on tons of indicators, tons of news messages, tons of ways that are going to tell you, what they think, tons of blogs. And take it from someone who did that 40 years ago. That's the way I traded. So I know exactly what you've probably been through or are currently going through. All right, let's look at some recent PTS XT pullback examples, okay? So I share with you the process. Let's take a look at things that have just recently happened in the last couple of weeks or to a month. All right, letter Z, all right? We've been going up, or we're kind of going sideways now. Click on the extreme trend tool on the tracker, and we're in an extreme uptrend. We're still in one, and we have 1, 2 down slots. So we place our order right above there, and 18 points potentially into the first week in August. Not a bad little trade, right? How about EHTH? All right, looks like we've made some type of a bottom here. Maybe we're going back up, a bullish engulfing pattern. Really positive things, right? What is the market telling us? Once we apply the extreme trend tool, click on tracker, none of that stuff is valid. It's telling us we're in an extreme downtrend. That don't worry about what the institutions are buying or whether there's a bullish engulfing pattern. What is this telling us? Well, firstly, we have 1, 2, 3 slots up. So we could have gone short here. Now let's say, using one of our different stop mechanisms, you used our very tight stop, maybe just above the bar where you got short, all right? Just for all intents and purposes to show you how consistent these are. And you would have taken a 5-point loss. Okay, that's perfectly normal. That happens from time to time. But you can't sulk and go in the corner and complain and say this stuff never works, because you can miss the very next setup, which happened a week later. 1, 2, 3, get back on your horse, and potentially you could have captured 20 points. So you could have made back that 5 and potentially made another 15 profit. This is what we mean by consistency. All of our methods are highly consistent, meaning that they are aware you will have losses from time to time. We go out of our way to show you that they will happen. But a consistent method is one that's able to recoup those losses. That's what you want to have, a consistent method. You do not want to have a method that promises the world and hits these home runs every once in a while. But guess what? Gives all that money back in the next couple of trades. That's not a consistent method. That's not something that will sustain you. Now, one thing I want to mention is that after you enter, it is no longer of any interest to follow the tracker, unless you want to maybe get into another trade, all right, get into, I should say, purchase some more or shares or calls or puts. So as you can see here, a lot of students say, well, Steve, what happened? The tracker is no longer here. That's okay. You're in the trade now. Now your job is simply to manage it. The tracker is just helping you initiate the trade. But once you're in, the tracker is a little concern to you, okay? All right, here's another example in BBY. All right, Best Buy, we had 1 slot down, 2 slots down. You place your order to enter right here at the end of July and all throughout August coming up here. A total of 13 points potentially you could have captured if you wanted to stay in that long. Now remember, you're not in any way obligated to stay in long or short or whatever. You're just obligated to make your own decision. And we teach you different exit points in our courses. So if you want to get out with a couple of point gain, that's perfectly admissible. Remember, you're in charge. You want to get out with 5, 10 points, that's your decision. If you'd like to stay in as long as possible and capture more than 13, that's up to you. Here's an example in NOC. Here we have 3 slots down. 1, 2, 3. Remember, we're buying because the tracker is on top. You would have entered right here above that final bar. A nice 20 points potentially could have captured in about 1 week. Not a bad little trade in NOC. Here's one in Facebook that happened at the beginning of August. All right, here's the first extreme uptrend. Here's the tracker, and it went down 1, down 2, down 3. There's where you enter. In 2 days, potentially you could have captured 27 points. You see how simple this is? Would you like to be trading with a tool that's this simple? You don't need to make trading more complicated than it is. Here's another example here of dual trades. For example, we had an extreme downtrend. We had 1, 2, 3 track moves up. You could have got short for a quick 5 points. Now, perhaps you wanted to go for more. Well, probably you would have broken even and moved your stop to unchanged because it quickly reversed. But that's okay, because look what happened 2 weeks later. Now you have down 1, down 2. You could have gotten long now. You just switch and reverse with the market. If the market wants to go back up, then you just switch and go back up now. And now you potentially could have made 20 points. This was in all coming into June. Here's LH, okay? A little tough to see here because they're not really sloping down that much, but this is a slight down slope. Here's a second down slope. So you could have entered roughly right here on the opening, 24 potential points in LH coming into the end of July, beginning of August. Here's an example in GSX, okay? We have the tracker all this way up. Okay, look at it. It keeps following all the way up. And at this point, we start to head lower. This is where students say, well, I'm not going to get in now. Well, this is actually a high probability entry point because you have 1, 2, 3 slots down, and you still have the tracker. So the tracker is still saying, for all intents and purposes, this is still an extreme uptrend. You could have entered right here. Once you're in, you're not concerned with the tracker anymore. Now, if you wanted to stay in this coming into August, potentially could have captured over 50 points in just about 3 weeks. That's a really nice little trade there. How about URI? Okay, we had to go all the way back to March to find this trade because there aren't a lot of selling opportunities as of late, but they will be coming. And so when they do happen, you'll be able to take advantage of them like this. We were in an extreme downtrend. The tracker is on the bottom. We have one slight slot up. Then we have the second one, a little bit more pronounced. That's where you get short on the next bar here. 68 points in about 3 to 4 weeks. That's not a bad trade at all. You could have been long the puts. You could have actually shorted the stock. Or maybe, let's say you were long URI. You could have used this as an exit tool to get out of the trade. Okay, Zoom. Here's a great example that happened in June coming into July. We were in extreme uptrend here, but here's the sell-off. Down 1 slot, down 2 slots. Here's where we enter in the beginning of June, 70 points coming into July. Okay, now if you wanted to enter more, there was, I thought there was more. Oh, I guess there wasn't. I was thinking of possibly having 2 slots down, but each one of these was only 1 slot down. Okay, QCOM. Here's an example that just happened a couple of weeks ago. We're in extreme uptrend. We have 1 slot down, 2 slots down. So this is where you place your entry order, but it never reached there because we have 3 slots down. So this is where you lower your entry order down. So this is great because now you can buy, if it works out, you'll be able to buy at a lower price using this technique. And you did, and you could have gone for a quick 7 points in 1 or 2 days, right? A lot of our traders like to do that. They like to get in and out quickly. So if you're that type of trader, this would have been a perfect trade for you. Now, we also have other traders that like to stay in as long as possible. So for those traders, here's an example in MVAX. Okay, this was in July coming into August. We have 1, 2, 3 slots down. So we would have originally placed our order here. When we didn't get filled, we move it down to here. We continue to track it. And if you want to stay in longer, well, that was potentially 90 points you could have captured. Okay, so remember, it's up to you. You want to get in and out in a couple of days, or you want to stay in as long as possible. The choice is yours. We're never going to tell you how to trade. All our job is to teach you high probability setups. Now let's look at some different markets and along with some different time frame examples, because we know not everyone just trades stocks. So let's look at MARA. This happens to deal with news events, okay? All right, so as we look here, we see that we have an extreme trend. We go down 1, we go down 2. Okay, that's where we're going to place our buy order. And guess what? We go up 3.5 points, okay? Now, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I just wanted to share with you how this can happen with very inexpensive stocks. Obviously, some news came out to really rally the price in this stock, okay? Now, 3.5 points isn't a lot, but that really equaled a total of, as we see here on the next slide, 200% in just 1 week. Imagine you were trading Tesla or Amazon, and they gained 200% in just 1 week. All right, so it's all relative. You could have purchased tens of thousands of shares with MARA as opposed to maybe an odd lot with Tesla. All right, so let's look at VAR. Oops, I think I went a little bit too quickly there. As we see here, it's basically just kind of rising, but then going sideways. Maybe you think, well, this is where the institutions are selling it. It's not really doing much, telling me much. I think I'll kind of just wait. But if we listen to the market is telling us I wouldn't wait if I were you, because this is an extreme uptrend. We have 1 slot down, 2 slots down, 3 slots down. You continue to track your entry order down. And on the 24th, you could have entered on the next day. And guess what happened? That was on the 24th of July. On August 3rd, Varian Medical Systems stock surged because of the jump down more than 20% after the cancer treatment specialist had struck a deal to be acquired by Siemens Healthineers, okay? So this is where the news came out. The good news is, the actually better news is that you actually knew to go long this a good week in advance, okay? 2 weeks in advance. So you could have potentially made 45 points if you decided to stay in that long. And the funny thing is, most traders wait for news. I knew I did when I first started trading. I used to say, well, I have to wait for the news. It may be bad, it may be good. The funny thing my mentors taught me, they said, Steve, the news is always after the fact. The market knows what it wants to do. It's usually telling you 90-95% of the time what it wants to do in advance. And as you can see, the PTS XT Extreme tool actually told you almost 3-4 weeks in advance that it was in an extreme uptrend already. So you should be only viewing this from a buyer's point of view. And then with the tracker, we showed you how to enter 2 weeks prior to a 45-point gain. Okay. Here's another example, but this is a 30-minute chart of the E-mini futures. Okay. Remember I said this can be applied to any market, any time frame. Most traders would look at this and say, well, Steve, this was on August 11th. This was just a couple of weeks ago. They say, I can't trade this. It's gone up way too much. It's going to come down, right? It's some resistance here, and I wish I would have bought down here. Well, if we apply the tracker the same exact way we would be using it for stocks, we'd see that we have a nice uptrend in place and 1, 2, 3 down slots. So we can apply our entry because it's still telling us it's not going to go much lower. We would have entered right here. 25 potential points we could have captured roughly in the next hour or two, okay? That's over $1,200 per contract if you're trading the standard E-mini. Let's look at a 4-hour chart of the British pound Canadian dollar for all you currency pair traders here, all right? Most traders would say, wait, Steve, this has gone way too quickly down. I don't want to buy this, so I've got to be, I don't want to sell this. I want to be a buyer. Most likely we're going to bottom out here, right? Well, what's the market say? Well, we apply the tracker the same exact way. And we've been in an extreme downtrend right here before it even went lower. Now, we didn't take advantage of it, but we have an opportunity to take advantage of this pullback. We have 1 slot up, 2, 3 slots up. There's where we're going to be entering. And remember, if it went up 4 slots, 5 slots, 6 slots, we would just continue to raise our entry order as long as the tracker was still there in sight. And as you can see, we entered on the next bar for a potential profit of 120 pips. Not a bad little trade, right? Over $1,200 potentially we could have made. Now, let's look at an entirely different market, live cattle, okay? For all you commodity traders out there, when the markets turn south, and they will eventually one day, no one knows when it is. It could be next year, it could be next month, it could be next decade. No one knows. But when we have a very strong market, a lot of stock traders like to get out of stocks, and they want to get into something more tangible, like commodities. The good news is that all of our techniques, all of our methods and strategies can easily be applied to commodities. For example, live cattle right here, the beginning of July coming into August. An extreme uptrend has been identified by the tracker. And we have 1 slot down, 2 slots down. You would have entered the exact same way, 11 points. I believe that would have transferred over onto over $4,000 in about a month's time just with 1 contract, if you stayed in potentially that same amount of time. So there's no difference. It works the same whatever you're trading. The same principles apply. All right, lastly, you could apply this to indices. Okay, remember when the market fell out of bed in February, March, and coming into April, all right? So many traders lost money by being caught off guard, saying, how did this happen? You know, we weren't aware of that the pandemic was going to be so serious and it just came out of the blue. Every time we sold off in the past, we always quickly bounced up. But this time we kept going. What if there were a tool that was going to tell us that we were going to be in an extreme trend? Well, there was. This is our extreme trend tool on the Dow, okay? If we apply it, most people would have said, well, first, before you apply it, this is a bullish hammer. Okay, so we're finished here with this sell-off. Time to go long, right? And it went up for about 3 days. So at this point, you're probably saying to yourself, wow, I'm going to buy more because every other time we've sold off, the Dow has gone all the way back and made new highs. But if we apply the PTS XT Extreme Trend tool, click on Tracker, don't get fooled. This is just a pullback in an overall extreme downtrend. So rather than getting sucked into thinking that a bottom was made, the tracker is telling you, no, we're still in an extreme downtrend. We have 1, 2, 3 slots up. Raise your entry point with each upward slot. You could have gotten short or at least said to yourself, you know what, the market's going to make a new low. I'm getting out of everything because it's not firming up. And you would have protected yourself against the next 8,000 points that were lost in the next 3 weeks, okay? So you can apply this to ETFs, to indices, to stocks, currency pairs, futures. It makes no difference. As long as there's a trend, the tracker and the PTS XT can be applied. Okay, so let's review before we close up and take questions. Let's recap this technique. Remember, you want to apply the PTS XT indicator and then click on the new tracker feature. What you want to do is buy or sell either above or below that second bar. That second bar in the tracker is your benchmark for entering an order either above to buy or below to sell. Now, the only place you can find the PTS XT indicator is on the PTS Primo charts. It's the educational platform that actually teaches you how to trade these pullbacks in these extreme trends. So ask yourself, do you think the PTS XT tracker can help your trading for the remainder of 2020? You only have about 4 or 5 months left. I'm sure the majority of you are not too happy with the results you've gotten so far. Kick your trading into overdrive the last 4 or 5 months. You know, finish strong. That way you can go into 2021 that much even more qualified as a great trader. All right, we have a special offer for all the attendees today. Thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday to come hear me speak. We're going to offer you the PTS XT Extreme Trending Tool, okay? This includes the new tracker, okay? It generates these high probability zones and blocks. Remember, you can apply to any market, any time frame. It'll help you trade with your current strategy. You can apply your current strategy to it if you like, and you'll automatically, in our opinion, increase your odds for consistency. But it really gives you the confidence to pull the trigger. It's also great for market timing, as you just saw, as we showed it with the Dow before that big sell-off in March. Now remember, in order to apply the PTS XT tool with the tracker, you have to have our PTS Primo charting platform. You know, it identifies these tracker setups. So for all the people in attendance today, for all the new customers, you're going to receive 12 months free of our platform. That's a great, great offer. You're going to just save hundreds of dollars by joining up with this because you're going to get the platform for free. Now, we're not just going to give you the tracker and nothing else involved. Obviously, you'll get that, the PTS XT indicator, but you'll also get our buy-sell line. This is 4 different ways to determine the overall trend. You'll get our strength of trend tool, which I've talked about in the past, which has an uncanny ability to tell you if there's more room to the upside or the downside in an extreme trend. You'll get over 90 of the most prominent technical indicators, auto-generated exit levels that automatically produce levels for you to get out of the trade. But I think the most important thing we have here on our charts, which is, in my opinion, worth its weight in gold, is the signal scanner, okay? For example, you can scan for these tracker setups to see if you're in a PTS XT extreme zone. And you can look and see how many slots you've got up or down with the current scan. For example, if you had scanned last week, you would have seen the NVDA was in an extreme uptrend, according to the PTS XT indicator. Now, let's say you scanned on the 6th of August and you said, well, gosh, I've missed it though. It's already gone up. But what do we have here? We have 1 downward slot. So I may be 1 day ahead. If we go down 1 more day and if the tracker is still there, I'm going to buy this, okay? So you're waiting for the next day, but look what happened. The tracker went up. So this setup is negated. but you're still looking at it on a nightly basis. And on the 10th of August, which was last week, you've seen that we had another downward slot. And then on the 11th of August, another down day followed by another down slot on the tracker. So this is the trigger. This is the benchmark that we can actually enter an order to buy above this bar on the 11th. So on the 11th, you could have entered an order to sit there to go long and stop by, whatever. You could have watched it on your computer. Either way, you would have entered, and in about 4 days, potentially captured 50 points. All right? Not a bad little setup. This happened last week, okay? This is how current this is. So I know a lot of you go to webinars and presentations and you say, gosh, these are great. And then you look at the dates and you say, wait a minute, that happened a year ago, or that was 2 years ago. I want to know how this is working now. Well, it can't get much better than, just last week. All right, and this is happening over and over again. We're not promising you that everything is going to be this profitable, but there are a lot of setups, and if you know how to manage it and you are, practicing in paper trading so that you fully understand the process, we really feel it'll make you a more consistent trader. So take advantage of this. Remember, this includes the new tracker along with other ways in which to trade the PTS XT Extreme Trending tool. Now, let's break it down, okay? Normally, this would cost you close to $5,000. That's how valuable and popular this tool is, okay? We're going to give you a great discount today. We're only going to charge you a one-time payment of $497, less than $500, and then a monthly fee of $97. That's it. Okay, just one-time payment of $497 and then a monthly fee of $97. Remember, you're getting, or saving, I should say, $500 if you want to pay in full. If you want to pay in full, we're still going to give you a discount of $44.95. But this still includes, for new customers, 1 year free of the platform. Now, let's say you already have the platform. Well, Pro Trader Strategies, my sister site, which is in charge of all the discounting and all the pricing, they would be happy to work with you. So this is still a great, great offer. I would really suggest giving them a call at 310-598-6677 to become a student of mine. And one last thing that I didn't mention is that link you see at the very bottom here, this is not a live link, but we have just posted a live link on the chat box on the far right-hand corner. So if you want to click on that, that was the one that will take you to the sign-up page. But I would really suggest calling Pro Trader Strategies at 310-598-6677. There's absolutely no obligation. If you have any questions, they would be more than happy to work with you and to tell you about pricing and how long you'll be paying that $97, okay? Okay, now I promised you I would answer questions. We have about 10 or 15 minutes left. If you have any questions, go to the question and answer box, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Someone is asking, can this be employed in the forex market? Yes, it is. I think this, let me see the time. Oh, yes, you asked this question well in advance of me sharing with you the forex example. So, yes, as you can see, it can be applied to any market, any time frame. Someone is asking, do you need to apply the 50-period simple moving average? Well, that's for those of you who are not familiar, we call the 50-period moving average our buy-sell line, okay? Now, the buy-sell line tells you the overall trend. Now, if you want to, you can. Most of these PTS XT Extreme Trending signals are in sync with the 50-period already, but a good number of them are not, so it's up to you. This is, a little bit more advanced, and so remember, our motto is to trade with the trend. Now, sometimes that trend is the overall trend, the 50-period moving average. Other times, it's extreme trends like we're sharing with you right now. So it's entirely up to you. If you want to apply this with the 50, feel free to, and we feel it'll even give you that much more assurance that you're in a stronger trend, but it's not required. So you're free to do this any way you'd like. Question, how well will this work with the PET-D in strategy 4 or 10? Well, in my personal opinion, remember, we don't have statistics, so we're not a statistical company. We're an educational company, okay? So it's like a teacher in a classroom saying, well, I can give you the statistics of how many of you will go to college and how many of you won't. We don't keep statistics like that. But what we can tell you is that this is just another way to determine trend. This is the PET-D on steroids. So in other words, you don't really, in my opinion, if you don't want to, have to apply the buy-sell line, nor do you have to apply the PET-D if you don't want to. You can. And in the course, I show you ways to do that. But it's up to you. That will just increase your assurance for a more consistent trade, okay? Now, in terms of strategies, you can apply any strategy, because think of it. Just imagine, I always use this example like the river. The market is like a river, and the trend is the current, okay? Now, if the market has a very slow current, if you're in an inner tube and you want to get from point A in the river down to point B, that inner tube is going to go very slow. You'll eventually get to point B, but it's going to take you a good couple of hours, maybe 3 hours to get from point A to point B. Now, if the current is a little bit stronger, like the PET D, you'll get there sooner, and you'll get there much faster than the first scenario. Let's say the current is like rapids, and it's extremely strong, and it's almost dangerous, but it's very strong and very extreme. Well, you're going to get there very fast, okay? So, therefore, what would you rather apply if you wanted to get there as soon as possible? Would you rather go in that slow current or that very fast extreme current? Well, obviously the extreme current. So it's the same way with trading any strategy. Any strategy can be applied. So all you have to do is just say, listen, I will only trade these strategies in these extreme current examples if you want. This is just one way. I've talked about this in the course. So it's entirely up to you. Many of our students who have strategy 4 or strategy 5 or strategy 3A, they only trade them once they get a buy block or a tracker. That's the only time they will do it. If they get a signal without the buy block or the tracker, they won't take it. They want to only be in the river when it has that extreme rapids, okay? So I hope that helps explain it, okay? The setup looks like the inside day bar just before the entry. How true is that? Well, this is not, that's a good question, but this is not based on any pattern, okay? All of this is based off, because sometimes they'll be inside days and other times they won't. So it's not based on any pattern at all. It's based on indicators and their relation to one another. So what we're looking at is just, we don't really care. It makes no difference if it's an inside day, an outside day. All we're concerned about is that once you have 2 slots down, that's your trigger to enter, okay? And then once you have 2 slots up, that's your trigger to enter short. We don't really concern ourselves with what the formation is in the pattern. It's a good question, but it's not in any way required, okay? Great questions. You guys seem like advanced traders here asking such good questions. One last thing which I did not mention, I wanted to bring up earlier, I forgot to, but remember, with all of our courses, including the PTS XT, you will get my personal email address and you'll be able to contact me whenever you'd like with questions. So let's say you just got it today and you're practicing it this week, and then a couple of days later you say, wow, this is great, but I'm not sure how to do this. Just send me an email. And most of the time I get back to you within the next 24 hours. Sometimes I get back to you in the next 5 minutes. It all depends on my schedule if I'm giving a webinar like this. So that's another thing. I'm there with you every step of the way. You never have to feel like we just threw you outside and said, good luck, it's yours now, figure it out. We're always there with you every step of the way, okay? Okay, so if there are no further questions, I just want to say as we conclude here, remember, do not hesitate if you're really serious about taking your trading to the next level. If you want to close out 2020 strong, take advantage of this great offer. I mean, less than $500, you can be up and running in just $97 a month. That's a great, great deal to have such a valuable tool. As I said, this is now our most popular tool amongst our students around the world because it's helping them so much. So take advantage of this great offer before it goes back up to 5,000. We often tell you at the end of these presentations, if you like what you saw today, don't sit on this for a couple of weeks, because if you decide after a couple of weeks or so that, okay, well, my trading has not improved, I'm going to take advantage of that offer Steve talked about, the PTS XT tool. Well, the price may be back up to $5,000. So we don't want you to miss this great opportunity. So we're not pressuring you, but if you're serious, contact Pro Trader Strategies. Talk to them. There's absolutely no obligation. They would be happy to inform you and give you more details about the pricing, okay? Okay, as we take one last look here at our disclaimer, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your Wednesday. I look forward to all of you becoming students of mine in the PTS XT course. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.